My main inspiration to become a lawyer, and indeed to go to the bar, came from a television programme when I was a child called Justice. It was about a female barrister working in a very male-dominated world. The barrister was played by Margaret Lockwood, and she had a very interesting, exciting and glamorous-seeming kind of life. And I thought, I like the look of that. My parents had both left school probably about 15, and my father had been a trawlerman and various other things before eventually becoming a businessman. And my mother had been a bookkeeper. But they did, I suppose, have relatively high aspirations for us. I'd already decided I was going to study law because I wanted to become a lawyer. I had no thought of leaving Scotland, so that limited it to the Scottish universities. And Aberdeen seemed quite a good place to go. I heard good things about it. It's not quite a campus university, but there are sort of elements of that. So during the day, you were certainly very much in that kind of environment with other students and so on. I just enjoyed the course and of course made friends, some of whom I'm obviously still friends with now. When I was called to the bar in 1981, there were probably, with those of us who were called on the day that I was called, there were 3 women called that day. I think that probably took the practicing number of women at the bar up to about 10, 11, something like that, out of a practicing bar of maybe 130, 140. So relatively small number. But I didn't feel, for example, that I wasn't getting instructions because I was female. I didn't feel that I wasn't getting opportunities because I was female. I don't really personally have that experience, although I think other people might give you a different account. We did have one day, a judge had complained to the then dean, who's the head of the bar, about the dress of allegedly some of the women appearing in front of him, quite a senior elderly judge. The problem being that some women had appeared too décolleté for his liking. And we all got a letter from the dean, every single one of us, raising this issue and reminding us of the kind of dress that was appropriate to professional practice. And on the day that the letter came out, there were about 8 of us in the library that day, and a more demurely dressed bunch you would have been very difficult to find. So we decided we weren't going to take this lying down, and we presented ourselves en masse as a delegation to the dean. So we all marched up the corridor of the library to his room and went in, whereupon, of course, he fell about laughing when we explained what the problem was and said, "Has anybody got a camera?" And fortunately, one of the women did have a camera for some reason. So he took a photograph of us showing how demurely dressed we all were. And that was the last we heard of it. I had quite a mixed practice, but I did do quite a lot of criminal work, trials and appeals. And it was relatively unusual for women to be doing that at the time. There had been no women prosecuting in the High Court until that stage in Scotland. And prosecutions are under the direction of the Lord Advocate, and the prosecutors are called Advocates Despute. And I got a phone call from the Lord Advocate of the day asking if I would become one of his deputies, which I did in 1988. I was the first woman to do that. It was a very interesting stage of my career. I remember getting my commission because you get a formal commission from the Lord Advocate to act on his behalf. And it's full of all very grand sounding things that the Lord Advocate appoints you to this post and gives you all sorts of powers to act on his behalf. And when I read it, it said that he appointed Leeona Dorrian to be one of his deputies and granted to him all sorts of powers to do this and to him the power to do that. So this had obviously come from a template of some kind, but I did send it back. The pattern of my career is really just being asked by people a lot of the way through. I was asked to be an Advocate Despute. It was suggested to me it might be a suitable time to take silk. And then in 2002, I was asked if I would like to be a temporary judge. So that was my first experience of a judicial role. And then in 2005, there was an advertisement for permanent judicial posts. By now we had moved to a system of formal application and appointment. I wasn't convinced that I should apply because there were some elements of being a temporary judge that I didn't enjoy very much. And it was really persuasion from friends who were already full-time judges who were convinced that I would enjoy it if I did the job full-time that made me apply. I'm very glad I took their advice. My friends were right that it is different and the opportunities to be involved in the system are much greater when you are a full-time judge, which of course is only to be expected. But, you know, judges, full-time judges, often from a relatively junior stage are given a degree of administrative responsibility as well as doing the judging. And I always found that quite interesting and an aspect of the job, fortunately, which I have quite enjoyed. I haven't had other calls in my time in the way that that people sometimes have. I'm aware of colleagues who have had to juggle family responsibilities with both practice at the bar and with judicial careers, and indeed others who have had caring responsibilities, but I have not fallen into either of those cases. The Lord Justice Clerk chairs one of the civil divisions of the appeal court and has delegated responsibility for the running and management really of the criminal courts, delegated responsibility from the Lord President to address those issues. And that's the role that I've been doing for the last couple of years. It is a challenging job. I think that I'm fortunate in that I have always quite enjoyed the administrative side of the work, and there is quite a lot of administrative and management responsibility, which you know, it can be difficult, but I have so far I've enjoyed it very much. I think a job in the law is a great job for a woman. It gives you a great deal of independence to work, particularly a career at the bar, and it's full of interest, and there are lots of different paths that you can take, and I think from the point of view of a woman it's a very good career.